Welcome to another episode of the Learning Bus. This is episode 6, and nice to see all of you. We'll give a couple of minutes over here for everyone to join in. Cassie, you want to do your regular kind of check in? Who is coming, joining in from where, and how are things?
Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. And we'd like you to go into the chat, tell us who you are, where you're from, where you're joining us from, and maybe post one question you have for Josh.
Thank you, Cassie. Yes. So without further ado, guys, this is my name is Vishak, and I'm joined here by Cassie. We are your regular host for the Learning Buzz, which is our monthly webinar that we host for all things new and impactful, things that are worthy of discussion in the learning and development field. As you all know, that a lot of things that are happening and things are moving super fast. So we are really excited to kind of connect with thought leaders and practitioners and folks who are really staying at that edge of things over here and getting their opinions and sharing those messages with everybody else. So for this particular episode, I'm very happy to announce that we have Josh with us. And Josh, for many of you, you would know that he's a staple name out in the L&D field. Josh, I'm not going to do the introduction. I'll hand it over to you, and I'll uh, a few words
Sure.
about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Josh Cavalier, and this is my 32nd year in learning and development. I got started way back in the CD-ROM days, and then I formed my own training company called Lodestone, became one of the top Adobe authorized training partners in the United States, and I was the lead consultant, would go into learning functions, spin up technology. So I'm an education technologist at heart. Went back into corporate for 3 years, worked for a $5 billion supply chain company. And then in the fall of 2022, AI showed up and got after it and thought, is this going to be another Google Glass or is this going to be a real deal? And
Mhm.
it ends up being the real deal. And so now it shows up as joshcavalier.ai, and I go around the world helping L&D and talent professionals understand this technology.
Thank you, Josh. And I have Cassie also with me. Cassie, you do a little bit of this thing yourself right now.
I'm Cassie. I am one of the co-hosts for the Opposite or the Learning Buzz, sponsored by the Opposite. And if you don't know what we do our little monthly every third Thursday of the month. Is it third Thursday, right? Of the month.
And
We do a webinar series here, and we're just bringing new knowledge and things for everyone to learn. And we're so excited to have Josh. And I will tell you, like, I have been a Josh fan for a long time. I was like a groupie hunting him down at all the different conferences. And if you haven't gotten his book, you definitely need to get it. So those of you out there, we're going to go ahead and put the link in our chat here. And if you want to pick it up from Amazon, is probably one of the best books that you need to get. Easy read, easy to understand, and get you started. So even if you have gotten started, it's a great refresher, but it also gives you a good context for like how you need to frame things and structure things. And Josh is going to talk a little bit about that today.
yeah, yeah. Yes, thank you, Cassie. So, this particular episode is around the use of intelligent tools within L&D, and the title speaks for itself. We are in an era where we are surrounded by tools that are, helping us in all possible ways. And day by day, you're hearing various messages and posts about how people are using these tools within their workflows, how various types of benefits are coming in, and especially within L&D itself, there are a lot of workflows that are currently benefiting from the use of these tools. And that's something that we want to discuss today. The use of these tools, how do we go about it? What are some things that we need to keep in mind while using these tools? Maybe long-term projections, forecasts on, how this is going to impact us as a community. Josh, before I get into tools and such, I know we are talking a lot about tools, but just to do a little mood check on within the L&D field itself, the kind of practitioners that you're talking to and such. How is it with these tools? What's the general mood there?
Yeah, it really depends upon the individual. I
Yeah.
think for individuals that have a growth mindset, they're leaning into this technology and they understand what's the what the possibilities are. I think for some, they're really scared because they don't understand where they sit with this technology as a professional within their career. They completely understand that. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen as far as fluid roles within
Mm.
L&D, right? Because what we are going to be required to do to support the business is evolving and changing in real time as the L&D function is trying to support the business in
Yeah.
and so it's a very difficult time with limited resources and this technology being implemented across organizations unevenly. It makes people apprehensive.
Mm.
And I know, when I go and I do a workshop or I'm doing a webinar, I try to calm people down. Like I try to, tell stories around how they do have a future in this industry and that they are important and their expertise is required more now than ever before. Is so true because you have to have humans evaluate the quality of these outputs. You just can't assume that it's a great task completion. So we need our experts. We need our humans more so than ever.
Mm. Mm. And
Hey,
and
Josh,
Good.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Vishar.
No, I just wanted to ask, what would be your message to, the ones who are maybe, pulled behind, who are kind of feeling a
Yeah.
little apprehensive? What would be the message for them?
As I was saying, here's the thing
Mm.
is that when we take a look at what AI can do today in March of 2026, it forms a bubble. It forms an area of what is possible or what we have determined AI can do from an automatic or agentic standpoint, right? And so we can look at it like that. And then on the outside, we have humans who do mostly the human things. But on the surface, we have humans who determine if AI can actually complete the task safely, with mitigating risk, with quality of output. All those things need to be done. It's not done automatically. And so, but here's the rub is that when AI increases in capability, what increases? The surface. So as capabilities begin to increase, we need more experts than ever to determine if it's still valid, if it's still good, can it be automated, can it be given to, handed off to appear in the next
Yeah.
step of a workflow. And so
Mm.
I tell everyone in this industry, don't don't for a minute think that you are not a part of this conversation, because you are. Whether you are just starting out prompting and you end up creating something that's very, very good specific to your organization, well, that's a nucleus of an agent. Like,
Mm.
you are part of this conversation. You may not know or have the skills to take it to an automation or an agent, but that those barriers are starting to break down.
Mm.
And I see everyone there contributing because they understand the edge cases, they understand the nuances of their organization, they understand the culture, and that is more important now than ever before.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Cassie, you were saying something.
Yeah, Josh, it's interesting. I know your story, so maybe the audience doesn't, and so I'm going to bring up this question. When was the first time you felt the shift? Because you've been in L&D, right? Like you tell your story, how you were working. I think it was like for a tire company, or
Yeah,
I
American
think,
Tire
yeah,
Distributors. Mhm.
yeah, right. And so when was that first moment, like you felt that shift of like we're moving
For
into
me
this whole new
personally, or for
era?
the
Yeah,
industry? For me,
both. Let's talk about
okay.
both.
So, what had happened was that, right after ChatGPT came out, I got my hands on it about a week after, and I'm being in education technology through all the iterations of desktop computer and so on, and mobile and internet and all that. I asked hard questions,
Mm.
like I poke holes, and I'm like, is this a really good technology or not? And after poking holes in it and figuring out the transformer and calculus and all the wonderful math that's in the background and probability and all that, I decided to put it to test for a really, work related job. And it was creating 80 multiple choice questions at 4 various levels. If you ever done it, writing distractors can be just,
Pain.
it's horrible.
Pain.
Yeah. And so something that would take me 3 or 4 days, and it was on ESG, environment, social governance. It's a public facing knowledge. I wasn't using private IP or anything like that. So I just figured this is perfect. Let's give it a go. So it was GPT-4 just came out. I went ahead and did 80 questions, vetted them. I looked through them all. I'm like, okay, I think this is going to work. I only did it in like 3 hours. It would have taken me 3 days. And 4% of the questions came back from the comms director and the VP of ESG. Like, actually, it was funny because the VP of ESG is like, what the heck is this? I'm like, whoops. Let me go ahead and take that investment question out of there or whatever. So at that moment, I knew this is the real deal. I mean, even though it was multiple choice questions and it's small stakes, at that moment, that was an inflection point for me personally. I think for an industry, it happened last year when through workshops and webinars, there was a distinct transition from experimentation to implementation to the settling down of AI operations when we got past the initial governance and policies to application. And that happened around November, around DevLearn time, right? The stories began to shift, the stories began to change. Now it's massive adoption, massive acceleration, massive solution sets that are going on, and really just but it varies. You have this wild dynamic still in industry to where banking, finance, insurance, you have all of these high risk compliance-based industries that are still behind. I mean, there's pockets where like IT and cybersecurity and things like that, they're using machine learning. Yeah. But in lines of business, there's a drag. Then you have other industries where I know I've worked with some SMBs, 3,000 associates, and it is full steam ahead. They got a portal. They got 14 different types of models they can work with. They got open source, closed source. They can make agents. They can do all these things. It is amazing. Matter of fact, I'm working on a use case, or I'm sorry, a case study with one of my customers now that fits that mold. Wow. And it's amazing what happens when you empower your experts with the highest levels of AI. It is truly transforming in regards to the way that businesses are operated and the way that the culture shifts and changes. Because again, the associates feel they are part of the conversation. They are not locked out, and they have the tools that they need to really amplify themselves and amplify the business.
Josh, let me ask you this question. With these kind of use cases, right? Did they go ahead and do something, create those prototypes and such, and check if it was working, and then got around to seeing, okay, now we look at the security, the privacy, and other parts, or did they spend a lot of time analyzing stuff and seeing if, we need to keep all these safeguards in place? What was the...
So it was first leadership bought in. Like, we're going to go ahead and spend the money to shore up and build out our AI operations. AI operations was built out in regards to a portal using the Microsoft Azure framework and all the security, right? So that was all vetted out. And then I came in. So I came in and then did the implementation and change management in conjunction with the HR leader. The initial ask was just to do it for the department. Then a leader came down and said, can you do it for the whole company? And I said, sure, I can. Let's go. And then so you have your champions, you have your individuals within each line of business, within each function. They come together. We scaffold how AI functions, how it works. And then we put them to work. Like, listen, I want you to come up with one of your hardest business problems that you have, or problems that you have within your function, and I want you to create a solve for it using AI. And that comes back in various ways. But it's those stories that come back where someone's like, this usually takes me 2 weeks. It took me 2 days or 2 hours.
Yeah.
Leaders were beside themselves because you had an expert in that line of business or in that function validating the technology because of the integrity that they were putting behind the output. And that is critical. Leaders have confidence. The individual contributors have confidence. And then those champions would then go out and propagate these stories and propagate usage to the rest of the line of business or the rest of the function. And that's the culture change. And so there was a lot of things that were in place to make this success. And so it's fascinating to actually see this company and see where they're headed with. Now, there's one little other thing I want to point out here.
Okay.
This is a 120-year-old industrial company. They make electric components. They are not the poster child for AI implementation, but what they are is a company that throughout their culture, they have embraced technological change and leaned into it. That is the thing, is that they have a culture of innovation. And
That's the
at their
mindset.
core, they chased after it. And to me, that is like one of the essential DNA elements of a company that is going to do very, very well with this technology. Because when you have a culture of innovation, that means you are giving your associates grace to fail forward with this technology. It is not, oh, you have access to Copilot, you need to use it 5 to 10 times a day. That is not innovation. That is a checkbox because it is now a line item that's costing the company money, and you better be using it. So I think there's something that is going to happen in regards to companies that don't have these DNA elements, and there's going to be a lot of pain as we move forward. And there are going to be organizations that understand this, whether it be small SMBs, there are going to be venture capital, things happening where they're going to have this at their core. And there's going to be a lot of disruptions in industry where new leaders or new companies are going to surface because they figured it out.
Got it. So is it safe to say that L&D, learning and development, plays a role of change management with, within this kind of an environment where, the tools are available, people are ready to kind of experiment. And if we have leadership buy-in as well, where does L&D fit in all of this?
Yeah, I have a visualization of all of this, and it's a pyramid. And I have leaders at the bottom because leaders have to move from AI literacy to fluency, full stop. And then once that happens, then they allocate the funds for ops, and then you have change management, and then it goes all the way. And we're at the top. Why are we at the top? Well, there's two things that are happening. There is the L&D as a function acquiring the skills of AI and using it for what we do for performance and learning experiences at scale, at the speed of business, creating individual experiences, right? That's where we want to be. But then we also have to maintain the performance and productivity of all of our associates who are also implementing AI.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what a double-edged sword. I mean, it is incredibly complex for L&D departments right now and functions to navigate this space. But if there is an understanding that we are now going into a phase of not just human performance, but it's measuring the net performance of humans working with AI. And I think that's part of David's question, because I was looking at the chat. I'm like, oh my gosh, he came out with he came out with guns a-blazing with this question. And David, I think that, to your point, one thing that is going to help us get to being able to analyze this net performance is access to business data. Right? So it's access to data that not only gives us an indicator on the performance lift of the human, but also with data indicating how good is the task completion. If an agent or a human running policy on agent, what is that net performance? But the only way that you're going to get it is being able to have access to the lift of the output, whether it be an economic lift, a performance lift, whatever the case may be. How are we going to measure that as a business output? But you need access to data, right? So if you're running analytics off of net performance, do we have access to that? And can we not only get access to the data and the analytics on that net performance, but can then we surface that story back to leaders, right? Because they're going to need to know, instructional designer, you went ahead and you orchestrated a podcast or a spin-up coach or instant scenarios or whatever, a performance surface to our frontline salespeople. What were sales that week? on that new product and what you attempted to activate, right? And if we have access to our business data, you're going to be able to surface that story, right? And that's the problem, is that we typically, as a learning function or performance function, we don't get access to a lot of that data, and sometimes data is protected. And so, we have these challenges where we need to go ahead and prove our worth. We need to go ahead and prove what we're doing as a function now at net performance, but we don't have access to that data. And so when I go ahead and I do my workshops, I'm like, listen, you need to advocate for what you're attempting to do here, which is access to data, access to AI, right? And access to the internal skills that you need to activate all of this. Because it's not like we're all running around and we're experts in data and analytics, right? Or we're all experts in business acumen. Like, there's all these areas that we need to really shore up so that we show up. And I think that's where we're at right now. These transitions are happening within L&D departments at various scale, but they are showing up.
Makes sense.
And Josh, it's interesting, for L&D professionals, we were seen as this, like, okay, you sit here and then here's IT. And it's no longer that anymore, right? What we're talking about. It's now L&D becomes that umbrella that helps surface all the things that the IT people wants to, because having a technical person do training, yeah, it doesn't come out so well. But what we're learning is that the technical people understand the technology, can bridge that conversation with us. We can then take that and we can help our end users. But when we really look at the landscape of L&D right now, what is your estimate guess? And I'm sure you have some numbers around it. How many of us are on the very much innovators on that cusp doing all the innovative things? What's the percentage of the I'm kind of getting there, and the percentage of the yeah, no, I'm not there yet?
Interesting. So one of the I guess indicators that I look for is access to AI. And to me, that shows up. Do you have access to a model? That's a start. Like, you can do prompts, which is task completion. That's great. Do you have access to Copilot Studio? Do you have access to Google Workspace Studio? Oh, now you can do automations. All right, now this shows up different. And so a year ago, year over year, when I would do a straw poll out, I'm like, what access to AI do you have? Only like 2, 3, 4% had access to Studio. Now, when I was at training 2026 in Orlando, not too long ago, I did that same question. 20, 25% have access to Studio. I was shocked. I was like, fantastic. So what that means is that there's this maturation that's happening. If I had to go ahead and just throw numbers at it, I would say 20% now have access to advanced forms of AI. I think that there is another 50 or 60% there that's kind of hanging in the middle. And I think there's another 20% off the back end that are just like, they're really going to have a difficult time because they're riding the struggle bus with old platforms, old technology, and they're lucky that they have an internal kind of a guardrailed or a protected version of Chat GPT that is just a limited version of it, not even the latest model. And so they're going to have a lot of challenges going forward.
So do you think it's more because they don't have access to the tool, or is it the internal individual being able to make that shift of we're all learning practitioners, and so we think that, oh yeah, okay, great, this new thing, we're going to learn it, but what I've learned is that some people are not there. Some people are not, there's some little humps and obstacles for their mind to like jump over it.
Yeah. Chicken or the egg, right? So do you have somebody who gets exposure to it and they advocate for more access to AI, or they get access to AI and then they have an epiphany and they're like, oh my God, this is great, let's get after it? I think it's access to AI, but with intention. In other words, like, you're going to have leaders, you're going to have folks that can internally coach people on this, because first you're going to have to go ahead and get the money to get access to AI. And then once you get access to it, you have to have those breakthroughs of, wow, my lens has shifted as to what is possible. And those small wins begin to multiply over time. But you hit a ceiling. Like if you're only gonna be able to get items out at the task level if you don't have access to higher forms of AI, eventually creating agents or getting access to Claude and letting the foundation model go ahead and be the agent for you, and you're running skills at scale. So, you know, having access to AI, having activation from a change management standpoint, and having with intention and having the transformation happen to the individual contributor so they have that breakthrough moment, especially the ones that don't have growth mindset, because they see that little spark of them being multiplied as in their expertise in what they do.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw a question out to the audience and let's find out where they are. What do you think about AI tools in your L&D work right now? Where are you? And type one of these, are you still exploring? Are you using them regularly? Are you deeply integrated? I think David said he's using Claude and Replit.
Love that,
I
David.
I yeah, I
David's in
tend
that
to use
20%.
Yeah.
yeah,
He might
he
be in the top
is.
5.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And are you skeptical of hanging back for now? I know, like, every time I get on a call with Vishark and I totally like dump on him and I say, have you tried this? Have you tried this? And even when I meet with you, Josh, I'm like, oh, did you see this new tool? Did you try this?
Yeah.
And we exchange those ideas.
Yeah.
But I think that's the community we need to foster so more of that conversation can continue to happen. Oh, it looks like a lot of people are still using them regularly, okay, and doing some
Yeah.
task. And so, for L&D professionals out there, Josh, in your recommendation, how do we move to the next step of deeply integrated into your workflow?
Wow. So there has been some shift in movement over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks um, that has radically changed the way I thought about our function. So, having been in this industry for 30 plus years, one of the most difficult points is, you're trying to go ahead and put out there learning and performance experiences that truly meet the associate where they're at. And for my whole entire career, the tool has always been a barrier. There was always something about these tools and platforms to where it wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the only solution that we can come up with. Well, professionals are taking it in their own hands now, and they're using Lovable and they're using other tools to build their own authoring tools, not just a learning or performance output. They're building their own authoring tools. I just had one woman in my workshop last week who her learning leader, is also an engineer, and they spun up an LMS in 2 days that was specific to their business needs. And
Amazing.
so the solution set, the performance surfaces are changing to where now we have ownership. Now we have agency. Now we can actually create what we need to create to meet our associates where they're at the moment of need. Now I know that's not at scale. And so how is that showing up? Like, what do those people have that other people don't? And I've already mentioned it. They're experts in what they do, and they have access to the highest forms of AI. And they also have grace. They also have the ability to go ahead and fail forward and attempt and get into the science lab and try things out, because that is the culture within their organization. And I know many of you don't have those. One of those 3 are missing, and it could be 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3. And those are the challenges that we're facing, is that we know the solutions that we want to go ahead and put out there. We just can't activate or put them out at scale because we don't have one of those 3 components.
Yeah. Would you add time also to that, Josh? In many cases, a lot of L&D folks are like hard pressed for time, like almost like working on deliverables that need to be given yesterday and stuff. So you know the landscape.
So,
There, yeah, yeah.
what's ironic about all that, when you talk about time, I have this concept called content zero, because
Okay.
content creation is collapsing to where you can go ahead and you'll be able to prompt and spin up a whole entire fully interactive course instantaneously. That's where
Yeah.
we're headed, to where you can go ahead and create a scenario video that's a Hollywood quality. You'll be able to go ahead and spin up a custom application that does the optimal scenario based training for an individual. It's hyper personalized.
Yeah.
Again, you have to, to me, what I think about is like if I had infinite time and infinite money, what would be the optimal performance or learning experience? Like, what would that be? That's what you need to think about, because that's within our grasp. Like, that is going to happen to where, like, you have a identified business issue on a Friday. It could be like, oh my gosh, we have to go out and sell a new product because of tariffs. Like, we can't get access to this product. So frontline sales got to show up different on a Monday. Well, you walk in on a Monday and you have 6 different coaches or scenarios or courses, and as an expert you quickly evaluate them, maybe show it in front of a salesperson, like, yes, this is going to be great, and then it's hyper personalized and scaled out. Like, it's very different. Like, it's all going to be orchestration as opposed to creation.
Yeah.
I like that in the sense where um people now are given that ability to be creative and innovative and really curious about looking at things and expanding and how we want to do it. And I'm sure IT people who may be watching this are cringing because they're like, data security, now you're building stuff and I'm worried about how people are going to infiltrate
Oh
it.
yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's why, what you said is like us partnering with engineering or people in IT and
Yeah.
putting that thought process together and putting our heads together and thinking about possible solutions, I think is great. And I think what we want to do in this session next is I think the shark wants to walk us through a use case in Claude, and we want to make sure that our users get the experience here. We're not just having a talk session, but we're also going to show and demonstrate some things. So, Vishark, do you want to go ahead and do that?
Yes, thank you, Cassie. Um, Before I step in, let me share my screen. I just want to let you know that this is again, Josh, this is going back to grassroots, because there are a lot of us who haven't even gotten to try these tools out, and that moment of shift, right? Wow, this something like this can happen. That's not happened yet. So I would like to start over there itself, and let me share my screen.
And
So
for those of you who are on
yeah.
here, feel free to, you can jump in and this will be recorded, but if there's a screenshot you want to grab and you see something that you really like, definitely do it. But we'll make sure all this recording is available thereafter.
Okay, so this is something, just to give you a little background. A client of mine in the UK, last year, I think in October, there was this new amendment to their, overall policy for sexual harassment, prevention of sexual harassment and such. And there needed to be an amendment and e-learning to be released into the organization so that people are aware of this. Now, something like this, when it comes in, I'll have to go through this. I'll have to see what kind of documents are available. The website, this is a freely available website. It says that the updated policy is over here. There's also a guide for employers to release some kind of guidance on how to apply this. Both these documents are there, right? Now I'm thinking, if in my case, if I were to use Claude, I have this prompt over here. And this is something that I'm gonna try right now, because I didn't wanna kind of do a demo. I'm just copying this and gonna put it into Claude, and I'm gonna take this. Yeah, so this is the policy document. It's there directly on their website. And that's it. I'm just gonna see what happens by this. I gave it a prompt which said that it should transform this into a 5-minute micro learning module, give it a real world scenario that puts the learner in a situation, 3 takeaways, and a 5-question knowledge check for this. Let's hit go. And I'm choosing Sonnet over here because I don't need to go into a very critical thinking mode for this particular thing. So Sonnet should do the work. And if it's something that is more complicated, if I have to build on multiple components, then yes, Opus 4.6 works. But I'm just going to try this out and see what it's going to show. You would notice that I'm doing this in Claude Cowork instead of chat because this works directly on my system. And so here it's gonna ask me some questions like what format should the microlearning module be? I'm gonna choose interactive HTML. What industry or workplace context would this be? General office, healthcare, education, retailer, hospital, tech, or startup? I'm gonna say tech startup. So this is now within Cowork a way in which it divides these into specific tasks and assigns sub-agents to kind of perform these tasks. And that you can see on your right side as a progress bar, showing that it's going to fetch the content from the website. Then it's going to build an interactive HTML microlearning module. And finally, it's going to verify the knowledge check logic and such. So this might take some time, but the idea is this particular cowork can kind of split the task into specific sub agents and then use that to build out the design document, various other things, and then compile all of that into a solution together. Usually I've seen that the responses are quite great. I'll
Hey
see.
Vishak,
Yeah.
I'll chime in one more thing. One of the things I tend to do in here, and if there are users on Claude, feel free to add into in the comment section of how you do it. But one of the things I do is I do a project, and in that project, I give Claude specifications about color codes, hex. I give Claude, like tone, language, how I want it to come across. And once you give Claude a lot of those persona concepts and context, when you're running these, the output you're gonna get is unreal. Like I'm just amazed. Josh, have you had like some of those experiences when you've been working with it?
Yeah, it it's addictive. There is no doubt about it. It is completely addictive. I wanted to mention one thing while this is working here. That's an important call out. Is notice at the bottom how there's characters. And actually, I haven't seen a character measurement before, but one thing I have seen in Claude Code is you're actually seeing the token burn count.
Yeah.
And what everybody here needs to understand is that a token is an economic measurement. It's a cost. And when you think about your career, one of the factors that employers will check in the future is, are you efficient when you run policy on agents to minimize token burn with maximum output? That is going to be a criteria. When people get smart enough and figure it out, and if you can get ahead of that and make a skill and get very, very good at that, you will be employed a very long time. Let me tell you, it's going to be one of those things that are going to be a major indicator of your knowledge of AI is if you can actually do minimum token burn with maximum output.
This is very similar to the coders, developers, right? How optimized is the code that you're writing, how in the
Yes,
least number of
yes.
lines of code. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
And
Claude has come a
yeah,
long way though. I mean, I love how they now uh, in the and again, if you're an organization and you use the enterprise platform, that changes home so many things because you start building your connectors, you start putting things in there. It just but again, just if you have a pro license, you can do a lot of things in here as well.
yeah. So here you go. This is one that's a short module that's been created. You can click through. It's day two. It gives you a little scenario, and it gives us a set of questions. Now, while it has created this, and Cassie, thank you so much for raining on my parade by asking those questions about the coding, the branding guidelines. That's gonna be my next piece. I mean, it's very easy to kind of come here, put in a prompt, and get some really cool code. But this is what Josh was referring to at the very beginning. We need our experts because when we go through this content from an instructional design lens, from a content accuracy lens, and a lot of other perspectives, there might be gaps. I'm sure there are gaps which an expert would look at this content and see that, okay, this is not right. So this is where I guess, Josh, you're saying, right? I mean, we need those experts. We need that lens when we are using these intelligent tools to and creating.
Exactly. And the other thing I want you to think about is this is just text-based output. This will be an interactive video at scale when the models expand. Like this is just the start. We're at the only very beginnings of this. And so what is, essentially what a text-based experience is going to be a full multimodal immersive experience at scale. That's what this technology affords us. It's just not there yet, but it will be. And I'm telling you, it's going to be pretty spectacular when you go ahead and not only do that, but do it multilingual. You'll be able to accommodate people that are on the spectrum. You'll be able to go ahead and, for accessibility, all that's going to be there. And so that's the one thing you need to think about is that this is very early days. And we're going to be seeing a lot of upside with the different quality and types of outputs that these models will be able to create.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to kind of go back and for the general, our viewers and such, I wanted to kind of understand what is it that, differentiates this from an agentic way of working. Like when we talk about, an agentic way of doing our workflows, whereas just coming over here and using this particular chat conversational thing, what's the difference there? And wha- um, how should they be looking at it when you're moving into an agentic way of working?
Um, I can, well, the way that I think about it is, so where's the capability and where's the source of truth?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'll give you an example. I just mentioned that eventually someday that this would be hyper, you know, personalized and it could be video based and all that. Well, how does that
Mm.
happen? Well, it's companies, I don't want to mention too many vendors, but like Synthesia, Colossian, HeyGen, all these, when they have their ability is to actually go ahead and produce optimal media outputs. And if they have an exposed endpoint and through MCP, we can actually tap into and get voices from 11 Labs, get our avatars from, whoever, and maybe even switch it up. Maybe like, well, we want a different type of avatar. And that's where the agents come into play. Because if you have an orchestration agent that's trying to put together this multimodal type experience, they will go out and, based upon licensing or agreements that you have, tap into 11 Labs and maybe use a different voice or use a different language and start building it out at scale. Um, and it's dynamic. You're not going to be limited in regards to um, your own internal platforms. You'll be able to go out and securely use these other capabilities eventually. Like there's a lot
Mhm.
of work to be done to get to that point. And the way that we see it now is actually hidden within the tools that we use. For instance, if you use Articulate Storyline or Rise with AI capability, they're actually doing that in the back door. They're
Yeah,
partnering with 11 Labs and these other vendors, and they're
yeah.
tunneling it into the application. What
Mm.
I'm talking about is getting outside of that, breaking that box, and being able to go where you need to go to create the experience that you need for that associate in the moment. And those barriers are going to break down, and the economics are going to shift and change. And I think you're going to see that as we move forward into 2027.
Mm, And for people who are just kind of stepping into this and trying to use this, right? How would they go about getting to that level of agentic workflows and setting it up, if they don't have the three things that you mentioned, Josh, the ones that, is saying,
Yeah.
if by chance that is not there, is there any way they can kind of get to that state, at least to
Yeah,
experiment?
so, independent of what you may have going on at work, so your employer is going to give you access to AI, but in
Mm,
regards to your career, it may not be the access of AI that you need now. And what I'm saying is spend the $20 a month, invest in yourself,
mm,
get Claude for the desktop, get Claude Code, and understand how it works. Because
mm,
at its core, with markdown files, I know I'm probably saying words people are like, what's a markdown file? Skills, There are elements that are beginning to surface that are becoming standards that are really going to drive the way that we do work in the future, in a collaboration with an agent or with an agent doing the work itself. And so these underpinnings, these standards that are starting to surface, you will do yourself a favor in experimenting and understanding, what that means. And I want to just like, here's the thing. This is a very visceral technology, and an analogy I use is like riding a bike, right? So when we're young and we learn how to ride a bike, if you go too slow, you're going to fall off. But if you also go too fast, you're going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
So you need to find your own pace in all of this, and do not get caught up in, oh my God, it's moving so fast. You will never be able to catch it. Okay. I can't catch it. And I have to mental health is really important right now. I can't emphasize that enough. Like, you have to find your community, like here, right? We're a community here. You have to find your pace, but you have to maintain your pace. Okay. And that is the balance that you have to strike here, is what works for you so that you feel like you're still part of the conversation, you're still moving forward, but you're not driving yourself insane because this technology changes every day.
Yeah.
And so, stick to your craft, stick to your expertise. And I don't care, get Claude Code and maybe lean into your hobby. Do something you love. Make a recipe, or maybe it's a new song or anything like that. Make it fun. It doesn't all have to be about work. So
Yeah.
when you start experimenting with this technology, put some passion into it, and make it fun. And I think there's a lot to be said about that when you experiment and you try these new tools.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
Josh, I want to ask, I want to mention something to the audience. You mentioned MCP, and so I kind of want to talk a little bit about that, because that tends to be buzzing around, and some people may not understand what that is. Can you share a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, MCP is Model Control Protocol, and it allows an agent to go ahead and connect into systems to get data. But more importantly, it allows an agent to connect into a system and control the system. And so we see platforms like Figma. I know recently I just used Claude Code. Oh, here's a great example. Oh, actually, this is the 2-for-1 deal. Hold on, my friends. let me let me
yay.
let me get my act together, and I'll give you a great resource. Bear with me 1 second while I bring this up. Actually, there's a great story behind this too.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share in the chat. Everyone should check this out. It is my 250 prompts for L&D professionals, right? Actually, it's got new
Wow.
branding on it, so I got a new brand rolling out. But anyways, so the background story on this is that, for top of funnel I'm going to call it what it is. Like, I was just trying to get people to sign up, and so I created all these different prompts, but they were like zero shot. They had some structure to it, but not much structure. Some of them were very structured, and so I was like, okay, I gotta standardize all of this and get them all to a level of integrity and capability. So I made a template, and I was like, how am I going to update all these prompts? Well, using MCP, Model Control Protocol, I had Claude Code hook into Notion,
Mhm.
which is where I'm storing these prompts, and it methodically went through all the pages. Each page had a prompt, and it updated all the prompts based
Wow.
upon the standards that I had. And so this is really actually kind of funny, because I had this start in the morning. It was a Saturday morning. I'm like, I'm gonna go work out in the yard. Right? I need some air. I need some nature. But my phone was with me, and it would, every time that it had human in the loop, it would hit me, and I just say yes, yes, yes. And so,
Yeah.
I was continuing the process remotely as it was working through, and it was like an 8-hour process to go through 250 or so prompts. But
Yeah.
I was also weeding out old prompts, or I was also doing recategor putting them in different categories. Here's There's a caveat though. So what was fascinating about this is that the context window was extremely long. Like, it
Mhm.
was going on and on. And about 90% through completion, Claude agents went off the rails, and they were changing the color of one little paragraph to gray, and I didn't ask for it. And so I think what was going on is that because the conversation got so long that it lost context,
Mhm.
and it just started randomly doing this, and then it scaled. So I had all of these it's not critical impact. Like, it is more of a small little thorn in my side, but it's a great story because that's what happens when you are trying to do work at scale with this technology, is that it can lose context, and then you basically can be sunk in regards to scaled outputs.
That was the lesson I learned. And that's why when I go into my projects now, I give it all that context to make sure. And I'll remind it like, hey, don't forget, I told you this. And it's like, oh, yeah. And then it goes back. Sorry, I forgot. And then it'll rewrite some things and put it back
Right.
into place. And it's so thoughtful, you know. Hey, Josh, there's a question in our chat right now. And Catherine was wondering if choosing a single subscription to personally invest in, would you recommend Claude? Correct?
Claude.
She already has Chat GPT and she's working for a nonprofit. And so she's kind of on her own here. So let's talk about like, why would I make this shift?
So there's a couple lines of thought around that. So to me, the reason why I like Anthropic right now is because they have focused in on text to the nth degree. And so what's happening because of that, and they kept their eye on the prize. They did the solve for code, which is text. They're now doing the solve for skills, which is text. So meanwhile, while OpenAI and all these other, and Google were chasing after voice and images and all these other things simultaneously, Anthropic maintained their lane and got really, really good at this thing. And I think they're going to continue innovating, and where the innovation needs to happen. Everybody is getting out in front of their skis in regards to multimodal. And I'm saying, like, you know, that's great. That's good. But I'm becoming more of a fan of Anthropic because they're going for these solves that are really important solves and going deep. They're going deep. And so for me, I spend more of my time in Claude because I'm able to go ahead and produce not just work outputs, but idea synthesis at a different level than I can do with even GPT 5.4. Now, just there's a caveat, because over on the Gemini side, because they're pure multimodal, they're having advanced forms of context in regards to media-based outputs that we've never seen before. And so you kind of want to, I know it's expensive and it's like, oh dear God, another subscription, but there's an interesting dynamic at play. And so where does that leave like OpenAI? The problem I have with OpenAI is they're trying to make revenue in all kinds of different ways, and it really dilutes the focus of the product. Like, oh, you're doing ads, and then you have like are you going to make a GPT store? And like, there's all these things, these mixed signals as far as what they're going to do, where I think Anthropic is very focused. I think Google is very focused. OpenAI is coming out with great models, like with 5.4 thinking and Pro, and that's great. But I think overall, they are going to be in a world of hurt when Microsoft decides to go ahead and switch main models and maybe go with Anthropic. And so I don't know. My heart is with OpenAI, but I think from the business side of me is looking at Anthropic and Google, honestly.
Yeah, and I think Google, they're when you use Gemini and you create your gems, wow, that changes the game of like how you can create some of those multimedia type of more dynamic things. And I do like Claude, and I use them in partnership. So I'll do stuff in Claude, take that over, pop it into Gemini, and then create the gem so that way I can get that creative asset. And Claude does a great job, as you saw that Vishart demonstrated, that it can create your learning. And tools like Replit or Lovable, or if you're using Google Stitch or pencil.dev, those are all other great tools that can do all the wireframing mockups for you, that can give you that look and feel that you're trying to do in instructional design, or if you're trying to engage your learner. So, there are so many tools. It's kind of like, what streaming platform do you buy? And you buy HBO, you buy Hulu, you buy Netflix, you buy this. Now we're at the AI tools, right? Like, oh, do I subscribe to this? So now you look at your budget, and you're like, wow, I do spend a lot of money now in those.
Yeah, it gets to that point sometimes. But
I want to
Josh,
share one more story because I know we're almost at time. So I had to do a keynote this week for business owners. Anyways, it's a different audience I typically speak in front of. Typically, I'm in front of individual contributors and leaders. These are all business owners. These are CEOs. And so I had to change my deck. Well, I shot for the moon, and I had Claude, which is extremely good at at both PowerPoint and Word output these days. It made my whole entire keynote deck with big words and layouts and icons, and I was like, oh my gosh, this looks really, really good. And so I was like, I'm just going to use it as is. I'm not gonna change it. And my gosh, after my presentation, people were coming to me going, your deck looked amazing. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. I was like,
validation.
The point I'm trying to make, I'm not trying to flex. The point I'm trying to make is that the surfaces of work are evolving and changing, and Anthropic really has their eye on the prize. They truly do understand the problems that are out there, and they're going for the solves, but within their lane, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm not like an affiliate of Anthropic or anything like that. That is the reality of what I'm seeing in the marketplace. So take the information, do with it what you want. I think Anthropic is sitting in a really good position because they understand the problem well, and thus you see the solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to David's point on here, I also have it on my desktop. And so the co-working part and the plugins and what it does on your computer, it's just amazing. I love
Did
it.
you hear about Dispatch coming in yesterday, where you can now control it from your phone? If you put in a task on your desktop Cloud Cowork, you can
Yep.
answer your permissions and give
Wow,
it
I
out
need to
from.
see that
Yeah.
one. Oh, I need to look at
Yeah.
that now. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
we have just 2 minutes left. I know this has been an amazing conversation, and probably for our viewers here, they came in like our listeners, they wanted to kind of hear in a lot more about our tools, but then I think we are leaving them with a lot more concepts than they came in right now. I know we are going to cover a lot of this in our future episodes, and Cassie and I are working on a set of workshops also starting next month, where we are going to be looking into these tools in a very practical way, take certain projects, and then help our participants kind of walk through those tools in a design thinking way, so that we are not just trying out the tools for the heck of it. We are really thinking through these tools. So that there's a lot that's going to happen in the coming months, and we are really hoping that all of you would benefit from that. Josh, one question, if you were to if not exactly a question, more like something that you can leave with us and our listeners, going forward with all this, the AI and everything. What is that one thing that you would want to tell all of us?
Yeah, give yourself grace and advocate for yourself. I
That's
think more than ever,
yes.
make sure, like, I know for myself personally, I spend weekends with no technology, more so
Mm,
than ever. Getting out in nature, getting away from everything. But then when I come back to it, I go extremely hard, extremely fast. But
yeah.
you need to give yourself grace in all of this, because the world is shifting exponentially around this technology, and the human brain is just not built for that.
Yeah.
So just like stay on the bike. Yeah, stay just steady as she goes. Stay on that bike, figure out what that
Find your
speed is,
balance.
but make sure you stay on it.
Find your balance.
And
Yeah.
and Josh will be at a lot of events for the rest of the year. So definitely
Yeah.
follow him on LinkedIn, find
Definitely.
him, say hi to him, get his book, look at his prompts that he has. And then also last week we had Inki Dejima, and he came out with a really great guide. And so if you go ahead and find that guide too, I think that'll be helpful for your future development. Vijay, do you have any last closing thoughts?
Um, just good thoughts, and really looking forward to what we would be accomplishing here. I know a lot of things are happening around us with respect to tools and agentic ways of working and such. So I'm just excited, really kicked to kind of see what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, thank you, Josh, for your time this morning. And thank you to everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you,
Take care.
Josh. Thank you, Cassie.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
everyone.
All
Bye.
right. Goodbye.
And